Howdy folks, I'm Pork Chop. Welcome to my playpen. If you stopped by to see Curious George the Shop Cat, I don't know how to make a link, but I have made a playlist of 15 of his shorts. You're welcome to look that up. In the meantime, we're back to the ongoing saga of Little Betty the Shop Truck. If you haven't been here before, the crux of this channel has always been, what can I do with what I have? We'll go into that a little bit more. I tried to remember to turn my face on, say hi before I turn the camera on. But the fact of the matter is, today I'm in a grumpy mood. Apparently I'm more solar powered than I'd like to admit. The sun's not been shining, and I went down a deep dive rabbit hole trying to figure out how to do a better job of videoing and editing and uploading, and got myself discouraged is what I done. So in any case, let's get off of that. Let's get back on to Little Betty the Shop Truck and see what we can glom through. Now, in fair warning, Little Betty's kind of like me in this YouTube channel are at the tipping point. She's at a point where a lot of projects stall. The truck all mocked up, got it running, drove her. I started into making an improvement, to put windshield wipers on it. And that took me into a whole bunch of backtracking and taking things apart. While we're in here, we just as well. And that's where a lot of projects stall at. Well, that windshield wiper motor install conversion led me to, while I was in there, I had to remove some stuff. I needed to upgrade the heater. And I found a shortened steering column that's still laying here beside me on the bench. I would put back in because while we're in there, we just as well, and that's escalated to the point where I'm about to go over and pull the gauge cluster out. I've already, along with the steering column, dropped the pedals, going to modify those. Anyway, let's go over here and take a look at Little Betty and try to put on a happy face and see where we can get with my grumpy attitude. All right, let's go. If I don't trip over a bunch of crap, I'm trying to learn how to do. Of course, I did not have my phone charged enough this morning, so I'm dragging a cord along behind me. Okay, now, seeing that, bear in mind that I drove Little Betty in here not all that long ago and was simply going to do a windshield wiper improvement. Well, as you can see, we've gone backwards way further than we've gone forward. So I think right now, let's see if I can get back in front of there, take that gauge cluster out, hopefully not knock you over too many times. If you can see down here or not, that's the brake pedal. I got to modify it. I'm gonna shorten it, raise it up, get it up. It's been up underneath my butt. And even though you didn't see him, Curious George just strolled in. So I have absolutely zero doubt that he'll be photobombing me here in a little bit. And if he does and does something cool, I will be sure to upload that in a short. Now then, I'm trying something different with my phone. I figured out that depending on which lens I shoot out of, this phone's got 3 lenses. 1 or 2 of them makes everything in mirror vision and makes my right hand screws and stuff I'm taking apart look like they're left-handed, and that just gets in my OCD head and just drives me insane. So I'm turned around. I cannot see I can't see my screen, that's what I'm saying. I'm using the photography lens on the back of the phone, which supposedly shoots a better picture. But what that does to me is without getting up and walking around behind the camera, I can't see where it's shooting. So this whole bit of video, since I walked over to this truck, hello, may be a waste of my time. That's what I'm getting to. Anyway, smile, be happy. Like I always say, the crux of this video is what can I do with what I've got or where I'm at right now. If you found my channel looking for a replacement for the old big network car shows, you're probably going to be disappointed. It's never, I won't say never, but it's not very likely that I'll build a big budget build. Hi, George. Most likely I'm going to be doing very low budget, even no budget builds with what I've got. And then the thrust of this video, this channel, in fact, is not to teach you how to do anything, but to encourage you to do what you can with what you got. I love a job assignment. I always have loved a job assignment. That's the way I was raised. What's my desired outcome? Or what do I have? What's the outcome I desire? What do I have to do it with? George? Right on cue, buddy. All right. I'm going to pet this cat for a few minutes, shut you off, and try to recollect my thoughts and see if I captured any of this. Ow. All righty. Hopefully we've dispatched that pesky cat for a minute. Yes, I noticed my fly was open. Thanks for letting me know that. Never fear. There's another pair of bibs underneath this pair of bibs. Okay. Now then. Can we get this cluster out of here for the umpteenth time? Ow, without destroying it. Well, maybe. And it just unplugged itself. Huh. Like I said, and have said, and I hope you can see me, probably can't. If you come from or looking for replacements for the big channels, or they have big budgets and they make big builds, and then you may be disappointed here. I don't blame you. I'm not going to try to teach anybody anything. I'm just going to try to encourage people to do what you can with what you got. And I did do a video the other day. It was really out of my niche about starting a YouTube channel over 60. Well, like I said, I'm not here to teach anyone anything. Just try to encourage somebody to try something new. Do what you can with what you got. So I started this channel 6 months ago, already into the build of this little truck. I've worked a lot harder on trying to figure out how to video and edit and upload videos than I ever have this truck. Anyway, looks like this pesky cat's back again. So I'm gonna shut you off again. And. Well, it's become quite clear that George is not gonna let me accomplish anything today, at least for a little while. And I just figured out why. It's 45.5 degrees in here, and it's cold, and climbing in Dad's lap, this seems like a good plan to George. doesn't it, buddy? I'm gonna turn the shop back over to you, old boy. I'm gonna go see if I can find me a sandwich. Why don't you climb back up on your perch? Yeah. I'll get you something to eat, climb back up on your perch. Well, I'm back. I've had a sandwich. I feel somewhat encouraged. You may notice that I relocated. I'm in the office. On the table where Mama used to build beautiful flowers, George has, in fact, gone to the top of the shop on his perch. And I think I made some progress in figuring out my uploading and editing while I was overeating a sandwich. And if you're a Ford purist, what you're about to see will probably make you sick about fixing to destroy a gauge cluster. It probably don't work anyway, and it certainly won't work with that V6 Chevy. Anyway, if you can see that, that's the cluster out of the truck. This is the cluster I just ripped out of the dash. I'm gonna pull this bezel, this lens, and probably have to split this case, i.e. destroy it, to make all this onto that. But first, I'm gonna put you on time lapse, and we're gonna pull all the guts out of this housing. All right. All of that being done was just so I could get this housing, because I'm gonna need part of it as a spacer between this face and this glass, and I'll show you why. If I just lay that down on there, it'll have the glass right up against the needles, and that can't work. Now then, I already know that between the back of this and my defroster duct on the driver's side, I've got very, very limited space, if any space at all. So if I can figure out how to get all this done and back up in there and glued down, and this gauge cluster still work, it'll be a freaking miracle. The fact that I even got it in there at all is, well, this is the footprint from the original gauge cluster. As you can see, the donor truck's cluster is quite a bit bigger. Well, where the mileage reset button is, just barely clears this bottom mount tab. Just barely. And I've had to drill a hole in the dash to put that button through there, but it does work. It actually does work. So what I've got to figure out now is just how much of this housing I can use and how much of it I can get away with getting rid of. At the top, I know I have almost no space. Down at the bottom, these mount lugs are on the back edge of this, and I already know I can't. I'm gonna have to do something different down here is what I'm getting to. What I had that in there with was just these two screws right here. To make this work, I'm probably gonna take these washer nuts off. Run the bolts, the fasteners through this, slide through this and screw it into that housing. That's what I'm thinking at least. So, I'm gonna take this out here. Let's separate this from the glass before I fool around and drop it, break it. That would be heart-wrenching because, well, it just would. And naturally, half of the seal off of that stayed with the glass, the other half stayed with the housing, and yeah, go figure. Go figure. Anyway, I'm gonna take you along with me and see if we can do a test fit mock-up and figure out I'll learn anything from it, get any better idea of what I need to do to make this work. Like I say, I already know that I'm gonna have to cut this housing, slice a great deal of it away, and I'm guessing probably have to cut off this tab and re-weld it because it's spot welded there and there. And if my cut line winds up being anywhere on that side, I hope you can see that, there's a spot weld right there. If I have to cut this on that side, this tab will no longer be connected. That's what I'm driving at. Anyway, let's snap that back on, walk this thing out there and see if we can get it stuck back up in there and learn something. Alrighty. And of course, let's see if George comes down and attacks us while we're doing this. Now then, whether I can do this with one hand or not is yet to be seen also. Alrighty, that. Wood should go right there. All right. Where's my cameraman at? Cameraman, hold this camera while I... Yeah. Okay, the Chevrolet gauge. I guess I might have to bring it out here and... Oop, don't tear that up. That's brains that makes the whole thing work. That's the master plug for the gauge. When I originally put that cluster in there, I took this defroster duct down to get it in there. Well, I since figured out I could put it back in there. And it actually helps keep this plug plugged in because there's not enough room for it to fall out. Because the last, what have I put on this thing since I put it together? 1,500 miles maybe. This was just stuck in there and enough bumps, this master plug would fall out and shut my gauge cluster off and caused me a great panic a couple of times. I'm rolling down a bouncy road and all of a sudden I look down, the temperature gauge is going up, the oil pressure gauge is going down, and oh shit. Well, come to find out it was just that cluster plug fell out and scared me half to death for no good reason. Alrighty, I'm gonna get that other cluster and jam it in there, and I probably ain't gonna bore you with a whole bunch of that. If I make some progress, I'll come back and show it to you. or when I make progress, I'll come back and show it to you. Well, I've got it laid out what I think might work. Put it up here and slice that off there and hope for the best. Let's see if I can get you situated where you can see, and we'll do some slicing and dicing. And hoping for the best. All right, say your prayers I don't whack my fingers off. It's a good way to get a hold of this thing. Get out, George. What do you want, George? Being pissed, as always. But I decided I'm not going to show you that because it's pretty dicey. Them old grinders, them wafer wheels, is not something you should take lightly. Let's see if I can turn you upside down. Probably did. I probably ain't going to show you that either. Well, I lied. I'm not going to show you that. Slicing that off. Because if you don't have experience with a grinder and a wafer wheel, and I show you what I done and you whack your finger off, I'll feel forever guilty about it. So, suffice it to say, a 6-inch grinder and a wafer wheel is very dangerous. You can very easily take a finger right off. That's the piece that I cut off, by the way. Now let's see if I can sneak that up back behind there and see if we've actually made progress, or if I just ruined a gauge cluster bezel. Get in there. And can I do this with one hand? Probably not. And if I do this with one hand, will there be a functional gauge cluster left? Looky there. Well, I snuck that in there. Now, how in the world am I going to sneak that all back up in there with one hand? I'll keep you where you can see and see if I actually made progress. Well, that's kind of... I need 3 more hands, folks. And keep your finger out in front of the lens, dum-dum. By golly, I think we might be sneaking up on that. Time I pull that, get that lens in there, and that other bezel. Alrighty, folks, I'm gonna tell you, have a quality day. Turn this around, maybe you can see me. I'll tell you, have a quality day. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm gonna try to wrap this up, and when we come back, hopefully this gauge cluster will be in and we can cut up brake pedal or something. Anyway, have a quality day. I'll talk at you later. All righty. I'll select that smeared lens. Hopefully I'm in frame. Let's lay these pieces back for a minute, because I need to put the glass back in this frame and hopefully not mess that all up. Now then, I did just go out and get probably I'll clean that up a little bit. I got the gauge cluster plugged back in. I don't know for sure if I'm even going to have room to get this thing snaked up through there or not. I ought to give this thing a good bath before I do this. You know what, I'm going to shut you off and clean this glass first. Yeah, that may be a lot of things, but talented videographer is probably not even on the list anywhere, anyhow. Now, what the hell held that in there? Oh, crap. Hell, I just discovered another modification we're probably going to have to make this work, folks. I'm probably going to have to cut this thing up too, and I really, really don't like that idea. But I can see that with that bracket on there, there is nothing holding that lens in there. So this is going to be like the last several weeks have been, it looks like. A day of backtracking and refiguring. Either that or I just go get some ucky pucky and glue the dang thing in. And that's not altogether a bad idea either. Okay, that will hold that lens down. And it'll cover up that white inside the gauge cluster. So it looks like we're back to regrouping, folks. Regroup. Yeah, that's what this whole thing's all about. If you learn anything from me, it might be not to make the same mistakes I've made. But you know what? As long as we're upright, taking nourishment, i.e. still alive, we're still learning and figuring, and I didn't come on here to proclaim that I knew a blessed thing. The whole journey's about learning. I'm not a polished builder, but I'm a fairly accomplished tinkerer. And I love figuring things out. Now then, is it like recreating the wheel? Yeah, sometimes. Do I have a tendency to overcomplicate things? Oh yeah, all the time. Now then, I need to do something I really don't want to do, and that's go probably pull that gauge cluster back out again and give it a look. And just see, you know what, if I was smart, if I had a brain in my head, a half a brain in my head, I'd just trim that off right at that flange. Because any of this sticking down, if I leave any of this, it can and probably will interfere with something inside that other gauge cluster. It's either that or leave this completely out, don't modify it, because there might be somebody needing this piece for a 53 Ford, 53 to 55 I believe, and that's a pretty decent looking piece. That being said, I think I'm going to put Ucky Pucky on this old rotted out rubber, glue this glass in, and move forward. Well, there it is. It's in there. It's behind glass. I don't know how long it'll stay there. I pretty well boogered up a couple of needles. The temp needle I got knocked around, the oil pressure gauge I got knocked around. So I'll probably have to take that back out to fix it. And I didn't get enough Ucky Pucky on there, and I about pushed the glass out because I was impatient and didn't let it settle. But hey, Chevrolet gauge, 94 Chevrolet gauge, and 53 Ford pickup. Behind the original bezel, it fits pretty dang good and closes it in pretty nice. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Well, folks, if you struggled through all that with me, I appreciate you being with me. promise I will get better. I just don't know when. Right now I'm sitting in front of the computer. I spent several hours fighting with trying to get that little 30-minute video in there, and it needs a lot more editing, and I apologize for repeating myself so many times. But anyway, it's a journey. We'll get out of here and get back over to the shop and make some more progress here. Anyway, have a blessed day. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye now.